What's happening, art family? Taylor Payton of thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com here, and today we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts when using reference. Let's get started. So, as you may have anticipated from the video thumbnail, I am going to be drawing this tiger from reference. However, I am going to be doing it in a way that is, despite being reasonably well drawn, kind of boring. You know, it's like when you get too much of this one-to-one copy ratio going, this is really just a good way to not really grab your audience with anything but, hey, look how well I can draw this thing. And in this case, it's basically just, okay, I need to understand this before I'm going to take it and do some more interesting things with it. And that means that I'm going to really pay attention to the reference. I'm going to break it down with some shape language, which you are going to see a little later in the video. And at this point, I am really just trying to replicate it so that I can have a reasonable degree of confidence moving forward with something that's more imaginative. So when I'm doing this, I'm really just trying to focus on what are the key features or the big shapes and what are the medium shapes and the little shapes. How are all of those shapes, are you sick of me saying shapes yet, relating to one another? And once you understand the relationships and the proportions that those shapes hold and how you're using lines to enclose and infer those shapes, then you can begin to generalize them and turn them into something that has more imagination, more flair, and more interest. In this case, it's just the most simple process I go through. Aside from doing just one drawing, it is a two-drawing process, one sketch, one less sketchy sketch, basically. And I do that a whole bunch in all my other videos. You've seen it before. If you haven't, well, welcome to the channel. Watch the other videos. But this is basically just a way of having a reasonable looking result in a short amount of time, and also to understand things by drawing them twice. I really find that it helps me learn or cement when I'm repeating things, and that's why I repeat myself nearly ad nauseum in these videos, because I want you to learn as well. That's why you are here, is to basically learn some of these shapes. So already I've gone ahead and broken down this guy into some interesting and basic shapes, and you're seeing the finished drawing here, but that'll be later in this video, so just chill on that for a minute. Let's focus on this guy. So right here, you have this trapezoid, this red trapezoid that encompasses the face, which means that it's basically a square that tapers downward near the jaw. And we also have these triangular ears, which as a child, we can understand that triangles and cat ears are like bread and butter. As far as the overall large shape of the head, it's pretty much just a nice half circle, which I decided to taper into this little diamond shape. And it works really nicely for at least the front view of a tiger, and I think it applied really well to the finished drawing here. Just quickly, we'll break down some of these other shapes. Pop these off. Nope, those are the wrong layers. As you can see, for the actual facial features, which I wanted to break down as well, not just in the trapezoid, but in the more organic sense, we have this sort of free-flowing peanut shape, whatever you want to call that, and then another similar sort of bean shape for the muzzle, another triangle for the nose, and lastly a smaller trapezoid for the mouth. And then I'm going to go ahead and start a whole nother drawing. So this drawing is going to be the same process, the exact same process I used for the reference, except we're going to be doing it from imagination mostly. This is about 80% from imagination and 20% from the reference that is the first drawing. So I'm taking all those ideas of what I just learned in terms of the shape language, and I'm literally turning them. I am changing the angle of those shapes so that I am really making sure that I understand their relationships, somewhat their proportions, and creating a character. Now, this is suggested by Kim Jung-hee. He is a phenomenal artist. I have replicated a lot of his advice in my own practices when it comes to drawing, just because he's had a lot of mileage, he's learned a lot, and so he is kind enough to share his knowledge. You can look him up on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. I'll have links in the description box. But one thing that he emphasizes is to take an animal and understand that animal and then create a character out of the animal. It's a very easy character design exercise. So in this case, I'm just drawing a, sort of gangster tiger with a bowler hat, because who doesn't want a tiger in a bowler hat, dude? Like, come on. Not only that, I'm just giving him that sort of semi-dapper outfit, but he's a little bit of a roughneck, so of course it's a little asymmetrical. And then we have a pose that is very asymmetrical. Now, I can do poses like this from my head because I have probably repeated figure drawing more than anything else I've drawn at this point in my artistic journey. I have a full character drawing course if you're more interested in doing more characters, stuff like that. But for me, that is definitely my area of expertise. I can do backgrounds. I'm very comfortable with backgrounds. But characters are something that I can really just shoot off the top of my head because I have done a fair amount of life drawing, a lot of constructive work when it comes to characters, breaking down volumetric primitives that characters are made of, studying proportions, all of that good stuff that I have in Simple Anatomy for Artists and the character drawing course, and even to some degree in the beginner drawing course. But all those things rolled into this character design, which I am basically utilizing my previous knowledge plus the new knowledge I'm trying to implement into the amalgam that is this drawing. So once you understand your reference and you understand the shapes therein, you're starting to speak the shape language of the reference, you have sort of a better idea of what shape language is and how you can begin to replicate, mimic, contort, and recreate them in your own kind of volition. Then you will begin to play with more imaginative things, just like I'm doing here. So this is the longer approach to a drawing because it's full body, obviously. And even though this is sped up, the total drawing time for this whole thing, the study and the final drawing that you're seeing right now, was about 40 minutes. So that is how quick you can apply your knowledge once you've already kind of started to cement it. I really found that I struggled a very long time when I started drawing, and I've been drawing for, a couple of decades now. I'm almost 30 years old. I'll be 30 in October, and so I have been drawing sincerely since I was about 18 years old, so about 12 years now I've been actually studying drawing. And before that, all of my drawings that weren't from reference sucked. I'm going to be honest, I don't have a ton of talent, and you might look at this and say, oh, he's pretty good. He must have, had a lot of talent. But no, I've just been doing it for a long time. I studied principles, and then I sucked less. So this is basically me just taking those things that I've learned and applied from all my studies. I've studied cloth, I've studied Andrew Loomis books, I've studied Bern Hogarth books, just a ton of different books that I've distilled into the beginner drawing course and some of my other courses on thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com. So you don't have to actually go out and get these books, but I still recommend that you do. And then I take all of that knowledge and I try to bring it to every drawing that I have using those foundational principles that were laid out for artists for generations. We get to stand on the shoulders of giants and get better and better. So take all of what you're doing and bring it into something that has more application. Study application, study application. That is how you iterate and you get your skills better faster in certain areas. So, for example, I really don't draw a lot of characters like this. I don't draw a lot of characters that are anthropomorphic. I'm usually strictly in the human realm or like demon beast kind of weird or more closer to animal. I don't really mix or fuse them very much. But since I had an animal drawing from reference and a drawing from imagination, I figured that this is a good way to show you guys how you can level up very quickly using reference, but not, being absolutely a slave to it, not absolutely beholden to that reference. Okay, so to recap, when you're using reference, do learn the underlying shapes, rotate those shapes mentally, and actually draw the rotated shapes out so everybody can see the shapes that you're rotating in your head, and then apply what you've learned as soon as possible. So take it and then cement it. It's like if the cement never dried, we wouldn't have all these awesome structures and buildings and playgrounds and, civic engineering that we do. So you have to cement things into a form that is more rigid, more able to stand the test of time, and get it into your actual repository of things that you know how to draw. So next we'll talk about some of the don'ts, which are don't just copy it for a better final image. That's not the way to learn the most. I mean, you will still get something out of it, but you'll also develop over time a gradual sort of crutch on the reference. You will be leaning on it very hard. However, some artists can make that work. So if that's you, then no shame in it. I myself like to work more from imagination, and if you're watching this channel, I'm guessing you do too. So just keep in mind that if you want to get better at working from imagination, you will need to deviate from the reference. Next, do not stick exactly to the ref. So when you are using reference, don't try and get it to be so precise that it's just kind of perfect and stale and stiff. And the thing is perfection doesn't really exist. And if you want a copy of it, you can print one out. So there's kind of no point. Unless you're going for a super hyper realistic style. And even then, I would add some of your voice in it, some of your artistic flair. Get some of you in whatever it is you're referencing so that it's not just, hey, look how good I can copy. Because we all went past that in school. We're drawing like these pictures out of our favorite animes or magazines or whatever, and like, oh, that kid's really good at copying. But can you draw from your imagination? Can you add your flair, your voice, your artistic principles and study and your experience into something so that we see that it's a reflection of you and not just a reflection of a copy? So anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Be sure to hit the like button, the thumbs up button if the video has been helpful to you or informative in any way. If you want more educational content, you can always check out thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and happy drawing.